is, at one point they diagnosed me with cancer. All my parents don't see this. But they said I had to have a long time to live.
Hello, and welcome to Root Cause for the Need Foundation's podcast, where we get at the root cause of homelessness and other things. Today, we're getting at the root cause of one of our founders, Myan Spaccarelli, his life, how he came to be so successful, and how he was able to start For the Need with his wife, Viviana, my parents. And we're really excited to get into his story today. So take it away. Let's hear how you got started and some of the key moments of your life.
That's funny because I think, there's some people that know me really well. And when you're like, hey, how did your life get to where it was? They think you're thinking train wreck. Like where did it go off the page? Like if their kids are listening, they're going to turn it down. Like, no, don't go that route. But you say it with some endearment, like there was some success. And honestly, sitting here with you, I do feel success because I'm so proud of you and who you become, and I think inevitably those are the wealthiest things in life is when you have a family and comparable to your husband's family is much better than our family.
What? We don't do that. We don't compare families. Every family's different. There's pros and cons about every
I'd rather live in Matthew's family, though, to be honest. But we all basically get along, and we do a family trip together, and we're moving from putting up with each other to really starting to enjoy as you guys are starting to experience life and the value of family. And I think that's really a key thing with growing up is really understanding where you get value. And so, I can't even put a check mark like I feel my life is successful, but we're trending that way because we're, as a family, starting to really appreciate each other more. I'm really seeing that with the younger brother and sister, that they're getting exposed to life, going down their journey. And I guess that could be a lead into my life, which is I think in this day that we don't let our kids go down these journeys, that we try to manufacture the journey or is put bumper rails for the journey, which is understandable and things like that. But I think, when I grew up, my parents were both very busy, and there's a lot of life you have to figure out on your own. And I think that's beneficial because you, when left on your own, thinking that you need to fend for your own, it definitely gives you a different mindset.
How were you left on your own?
Well, I had a half brother and a half sister, and then I had my brother, and then I had an adopted sister. And, I had middle child syndrome or whatever, but my brothers were always in trouble, which was awesome. But, with little time my parents had, they were typically focused on that. My dad was a traveling salesperson, plus he was a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. And he spent a lot of times looking back at it, understanding why my dad was gone a lot. Was the best pathway for him because he was going to meetings. So when he was working or trying to stay sober, he was dedicated to doing the right thing, but that meant he had limited time with us. But I'd rather have limited time with him being sober than the alternative. Like a lot of his brothers died from drug overdose and bad living. And he's the only one left, I think. Yeah, he's the only out of 8 brothers, one sister, 8 brothers. Yeah, so that being left alone, I think gives you a sense that you
from what age? Like all growing up?
As early as I can remember. My mom is a great mom. My dad, great dad. But I remember there was so much focus. They didn't know too much about hyperactivity and ADHD and all this other stuff. My brother had all of that. And, it was miserable because they didn't know that, like, if he drank a Coke with caffeine, he'd fall asleep. Like his chemicals definitely reacted totally different. And so I remember him getting like a C minus, and then my mom just so ecstatic, so happy. And I got like, fairly good grades and no, like, even look at the report card kind of. So there was definitely, a big focus. But honestly, that's the way I liked it. And the other thing too is we never had a lot of money. So me and my friends would go trash picking. Like, I remember at an early age, we'd go around the neighborhood and seeing what people threw away. So we built our own little wooden go-kart, but it wasn't like I'd be like, hey, Mom, can we get a go-kart or parts or whatever? So out of wood, we made this thing. It was so good. It did have a motor. Yeah, like somebody had to pull it with their bicycle and stuff. But anyway, It was so cool that somebody stole it.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, like everything
You
came
sure it
out.
wasn't the trash truck thinking it was part of the...
No, I remember we like, I remember having it on the side of the yard, and I came out in the morning. It was one of the kids in the neighborhood or whatever.
Wow.
So that's just the way it was. But yeah, that's the way it was. So just got this mindset of we had to fend for ourselves, especially if you wanted something out of the ordinary. Because we got hand-me-downs. My mom would buy these pants called Tough Skins. So all the kids wanted Levi's, but we would get Tough Skins from Sears because they had a lifetime guarantee, and you could tell they were Tough Skins because there was a patch on the inside. Okay. Because kids wear out the knees, so on the inside they'd have this square that you could see when you walk down the road. The kids would make fun of you because you could see the outline of the square. They knew you had Tough Skins on, not Levi's. Uh-huh. So if I wanted Levi's, I had to pay. I had to buy them. Mm-hmm. Like, there was no doubt that, I'd have to go.
So when did you start working?
Early. I started working. I remember my neighbor went to Italy for a month, and I took care of his garden for a whole summer. He came back and he paid me $20 for the whole summer, and I was disappointed. $20 even back then was not a lot of money for a whole summer of work.
Yeah.
But I was trying to earn money, and the funniest thing was
that your first job?
I had all kinds of odd jobs doing little things to fix things and do things. I was always trying to, get, buy a pair of band tennis shoes like my friends had that I would have to save my money up to get. And then babysitting, I started that around 12. I was a babysitter in the neighborhood, mainly because this kid, Kenny Karatley, in, I want to say, second or third grade. It was really, because I went maybe fourth grade. But anyway, he rode to school on a little dirt bike, and he had his really cute sister on the back. and it was a two-stroke, so, it had that ding, 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 and he rode to school on that thing and kind of did a little burnout in the grass, and I was like, oh, that's my future. That is, and for whatever reason, I also connected that with racing dirt bikes, and I didn't have a dirt bike, but everything in the world, I wanted to get a dirt bike, and I knew it wasn't going to come through my parents necessarily, and so babysitting, I was saving every nickel, penny, dime to buy a dirt bike so it could be as cool as Kenny Karatley. But
wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, you never know what that moment's going to be for someone now. Like, okay, what are they going to see that's going to inspire them to save every penny? You've also shared about, like, your family, like, you wanted to be able to provide for your family. Like, when did that come in?
Yeah. Well, probably a little bit later, but going back to your point about you don't know when that is going to kick in. And I can tell you when it's not going to kick in, when you get everything you want. And the kids we serve dealing with homelessness, they don't. They have another thing that prevents them from thinking that they've got to take care of themselves, which is, nonprofits with the goodness of their hearts, or the government and stuff like that, creating these programs that have a reverse cause to what they hope to have, which is they are literally being trained to just wait for somebody to give them something. That's why we see kids that are 19, 20 years old that never had a job, have no ambition of getting a job. It's a little bit different, that they don't get a lot of things, but they get stuff, and it's ingrained in them to just wait and even complain when they're not getting social services. We see that a lot of complaining, like, oh, they didn't do this. And, it's an interesting mentality that's hard to change. But also we see people like we've been semi-successful. You got to go to a really privileged school. I think the tuition for your high school was like $30,000.
It was more than my college.
Yeah. And so you see it where they're driving to schools with Teslas and Ferraris and, Porsches, and you look in the parking lot and it's just, and don't get me wrong, some of those kids still grow up ambitious and with understanding that they need to contribute to themselves and the world. But a lot of them don't, So I think when you're a kid, you're asking about like, when did I want to take care of my family and stuff like that. And that's a good question about like, how do you make it your goal to have a family? Like where does that generate from? I honestly don't necessarily have an answer for, but that was my ideal thing to, house, 2 kids, a dog. And I always like that verse in Joshua where he says, as for me and he's like, people were doing bad things. And he says, you may, follow this God, you may do this thing, but as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. And I thought, wow, like he's making a household statement, and that would be really cool to him knowing kind of that his family looked up to him and would follow him, and he had a household. And I for some reason that stuck with me. And the other thing with Job, where his family got wiped out, but then God ended up blessing him. And then he was with like his kids or whatever. And that's at the end of Job, where you look at it like that was the definition of success. They were saying like, oh, okay, his life had changed to this better situation. And how good it was because he was with his kids, And so I was like, oh, that would be a life well lived. Yeah.
Wow. So that's really cool.
Yeah. What's interesting is, at one point they diagnosed me with cancer. I hope my parents don't see this. But they said I didn't have a long time to live. And it was a false diagnosis, which I don't wish on anybody, but man, what a life-changing event. So at that moment where they tell you, you have stage 4 lung cancer and you're not going to live long, you do a assessment of like, oh, wow, where's my life at? I was really sad because it was right during COVID and Nathan, everybody's on lockdown. So at that point I was Nathan's primary relationship. And I was like, oh, this is not a good time for that to happen to him. But outside of that, I analyzed my life and I was like, well, if you live 50 years or 100 years or 1,000 years, like in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. And I was like, yeah, my life's been pretty, like, this is, if I have to go now, this is, I'm like,
you're leaving the world a better place.
Well, I felt just, it's a sense of peace of like, yeah, it's been great. And it doesn't have to do with money. Dude, we had the apartment building we were building, and we were like financially going broke on that. Like a lot of stuff was tumbling down because of COVID. There was so it wasn't like a financial thing. We didn't have financial stability at that moment. Like everything was crashing down. And I was like, yeah, but you know what? We did okay. This was a good life. It was so surreal to have those thoughts.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm well with this. So, in any case.
You said it wasn't money. Like, what do you think it was that brought you that peace?
No, honestly, it's just the family. Like everybody, like God had given me so many blessings, and I got to race cars and, be married to mom and, a lot of good things. I was like, that's more than I could have ever asked for.
Wow.
The rest is icing on the cake, I guess. So it's being able to appreciate that. But
wow, what a moment. Yeah, most people are probably not going to experience that, where you get a false diagnosis and then you are forced to kind of reevaluate your life. But we can still do that even without a diagnosis. Like, hey, what if I was to die, in a year from now? How would I feel that my life was lived? Where did I spend my time? What did I prioritize? Was I scrolling on Instagram every day? Or was I saying a prayer of gratitude first thing in the morning, or every day first thing in the morning? Or was I giving back and helping other people, having a family?
Yeah. I can tell you one thing from that experience too that I would recommend to everybody is a lot of my peace and good feeling comes from our service that we do, like helping people deal with homelessness. It's amazing how much psychologically, I think we were built that way. I think God made us that way, that if we're trying to do the commands that God gave us, love our neighbor, that it really makes you feel like a life well lived. Like it's not like the trip to Jamaica or wherever you want to, or Paris, or those are cool things. But they talk about people like have regret on their deathbed or whatever. But when you serve and like set things up to give back, and then you're thinking about your impact, I guess, to a degree. Not that you have to have some legacy but it is a sense of fulfillment at those critical times.
Yeah.
That is like really solid. And people, I've seen a lot of friends and different people. Now there's psychological issues too, and I don't want to minimize that. But I would say that no matter what situation you're in psychologically, when you give back and when you fulfill your purpose, it helps you so much. And when it's tested, that's when you really know. And I'd say I was really tested at that time. And I was like, wow, I recommend this for everybody, So if you want to volunteer it for the need,
Not biased at all.
But it is, I mean, that for me, that's my feeling, that connections I made for that.
How did you first come up with the idea for the need?
My parents were foster parents, and I've shared this story before. There was a party for kids that were in foster, and every kid got a present, and they gave me a present. I'm like, wow. And they insisted that I unwrap it. And I was a little kid, so I did. And I remember like the Kit Kat tiger being there. So I think it might have been by Mars or whoever owns Kit Kat. I don't know who it was, but I found out that it was a company that hosted that. And I said to myself at that point, if I could do something, if I ever am successful and could do something that's bringing so much encouragement and joy to like a whole group of people, that would be really cool to do. And I think in regards to putting in a lot of hard work, having pure motives to what you're doing, I think you have the potential to get blessed. I mean, God could do whatever he wants, but I do feel blessed because that was a big part of the motivation, was wanting to have a family that I could support and being able to give back at some point in time. So that was it. And I was telling the story to Olga, who was our dispatcher, one of the dispatchers at our company. And she's like, well, why haven't you done it yet? And I'm like, you're right. Like, we are in a position now where we could actually do something to give back to the community. She's like, yeah. She's like, almost like, you idiot. And I said, okay, if you help me, we'll get this started. And she's like, well, let's plan it out now. And we did that. It was Olga just going like, yeah, you keep talking about it, calling me out. And it's cool. I worked at I worked at and owned a company where, the dispatcher could be like, you're an idiot. We did a lot of great things because people had liberty to share what they were thinking.
Yeah.
And Olga is really special for getting us started on that. So
that was back in 1999, right?
Yeah.
With Spartan?
No, Looney Bins.
Yeah. Okay.
Looney Bins. 99, 98, somewhere around there. And so we looked for a community we can serve. And at that time, it was Children's Institute. It was like a organization that helped kids in foster and wanting to get adopted and stuff like that. And they weren't having an annual party. And what's really cool, we did it there for 2 or 3 years, and then they decided to have their own party, which was
that's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
And my guess is to this day they still do it because we checked in years later and they were still doing that. Then we went to the pediatric cancer clinic, because you have to find organizations that need some support and stuff like that. And anyway, it developed from there. But as we went to the county hospital, we found out, just talking to the people that had worked at the county hospital for years and years, that they said one of the biggest needs that they had was that the kids would come in, they'd see them periodically, and they were doing fine. They were living in homeless shelters or dealing with being foster. Some of them were coming from juvenile detention. But as the kids got older and realized their situations were different than everybody else, that they were dealing with homelessness and stuff, there was a point in time where they started self-medicating or joining gangs or getting into trouble. So they'd see their health changing. And they'd say, there's no intervention. Like, we see these kids at little, and they're just perfectly good little kids, and then something happens. And so originally me and my friend Phil thought we'd open a camp. Like, we were like, hey, let's open a camp and we'll have these kids come. And Phil is an engineer, process engineer, and he says, I'm going to do a deep dive into this, like really study out before we go down this path.
Yeah.
And what he found was there's tons of camps. He's like, dude, we're going to be cleaning like sewer pipes and like, it's a hard
I remember
job.
we toured a vacant campsite that we were thinking about doing something with.
Yeah. Yeah. Phil.
When was that? That was like 2017? Around then. Something around then. During COVID time. No, before COVID. Way before COVID. A couple years before. Yeah. Yeah,
we toured a lot of camps, and there's so many great camps out there. And we tour the camps, and the camps would be like, yeah, if you have kids that want to come, because they had vacancies. Some of them had sponsored programs from the state where the state would actually pay for the kids to come to camp or subsidize in some way, and they weren't getting participants. Then we'd look and we'd see, well, you have to sometimes have immunization records. Sometimes you have to have parent signature. Sometimes the forms were online only. And it's like, no wonder you're not getting these kids. So what we found was that there was tons of camps. But again, that intermittent, that's not maybe not the right word, but the in between, of when they're very little to like getting them put into these programs. And it's the same thing we saw in our own community, because every year we were doing this rocket launch day. You were a part of that.
Yeah.
And what I sought out to do with that, and honestly, Allie, I was doing this ever since I was a little younger person. I found out that kids at our church had never been to the snow. So me and my buddy Jack coordinated this effort every year to take kids to the snow, and our church was like kind of against it. They're like, well, you can't do it at the church, you got to get permission. And we're like, we'll just rent a van and pass out flyers. And it couldn't say anything about the church, which says, if you want to go to the snow, meet us at the Target parking lot at such and such. And we'd have van loads of kids.
Wow.
And it was just great memories of these kids doing snow angels, all this stuff. Yeah, because there's a ton of kids. So like getting kids to go to things and participate. And I always wanted to find the kids that didn't get to do that stuff. Like, it just seemed unfair that, and life isn't fair, and there's worse situations. But I connected with where Jesus said, love your neighbor, to go, man, it's, and the question the Pharisee asked Jesus was, who's my neighbor? And so that was the question that the Pharisee stumbled with. He was looking at it as a cop-out, like who's my neighbor? Like that's such a tough question to figure out. And a lot of us, like, we see what's happening in Iran, Ukraine, around the world, and people will get involved with those conversations very deeply, which I think is important. But I think it's also a distraction from figuring out who your neighbor is.
It can be, yeah.
If you want to know who your neighbor is, walk out your door, go right or left.
I like that.
And you'll find out who your neighbor is. It's funny. I tell you the story about Mom.
Well, you were about to say Rocket Day. You said we started doing Rocket Day.
I was going to get so distracted. Thank you, Allie.
You're welcome. It's all good.
But anyway.
You started doing the Rocket Day.
Yeah. So our neighborhood is Simi Valley. That's where we live. And we would hear these stories. Like I remember one year, 3 kids had lost their dads. Three different families. The dads had died. And we knew who they were. Like 2 of them, I think, were from your school, and 1 was from somewhere else. And it was just so weird. And we're like, hey, let's see if these kids are ready to come to Rocket Day. And so we reached out. And they were like, the moms would be like, yeah, that would be really encouraging. And so we'd reach out again. And then we'd have the Rocket Day, and we'd prepare all this. All the kids that had 2 very active parents, all those kids showed up. They showed up early. They were ready to go. And we had these probably 6 to 8 kids that I really wanted to be there, and none of them showed up, even though we talked to them the day before.
Yeah.
And so we realized there's this huge gap of kids that could really use encouragement and positive influence and the ability to actually get to the place where you need a parent. They're still kids. They can't do it on their own. And just for whatever reasons, the parents couldn't participate with that. So I told Viviana, your mom, my wife, get in your van. We know where they live. And she literally drove. And God bless Mom, because anytime it's like, hey, time to go do something, she's like, she didn't, no hesitation. Okay, all right, I'll be back. And so she comes back, and she had all of them.
Wow.
And she did it multiple times. And we said, okay, this is what it is. You have to seek out these kids that aren't getting the attention that would help them. And you have to be proactive about that.
Very proactive.
Yeah. Which is so, and I was talking to this lady that ran this school, Marburg, but it's this really tidy school where the high school tuition is $50,000 a year. And we're just talking about the difference between the kids that have and the kids that don't. And it's so big.
Yeah.
Where a lot of kids, they go, Mommy, I want to learn how to play the violin. And 2 days later, they got a Stradivarius and like 2 instructors. And by that time, the kids already moved on to snowboarding or something, to where other kids can only, they can't even afford themselves to think or hope that they can go do something like be on a soccer team or whatever. They know they can't.
Yeah. They're just trying to walk to school. Like even that is difficult.
After they do the laundry for their family. Like we've seen that where we have our events, we pay for the ride, we've talked to the guardian, and then we find out the kid doesn't come, and we go to the shelter, and they're literally there doing the laundry at 10 years old for the family. So, so that's what prompted us trying to do what we do, and that was a genesis of the bow and arrow program.
It's been a blessing to be part of it. And I hear throughout all of that, the theme of for the need. We're not just here to like randomly do stuff. We're very much focused on what is the biggest need and how can we have the biggest impact with that. It's so wow. It's been so cool to see how the program's evolved since then, where we do these events and we have our focuses. There's about 4 focuses, making sure the events are really, really fun and providing a lot of value to the families. And we had a whole episode on this actually about how we specifically go the extra mile to make sure those kids who are the most in need come to our events. And it was not easy at first. And it's gotten better where we confirm with the families the day before. They have to reply. We say, please reply to confirm you're coming the day before, not 2 days before, the day before, because things change. We provide transportation. Over half of our families don't have any transportation at all, and we'll provide that, or a gas gift card if they drive themselves. And that's made a huge difference. And then one of the biggest things is our longbow team.
Yeah.
We have a whole group of volunteers who their whole role is to call the families once a month, encourage them, and invite them to sign up for our events and even help them with the sign up. And that four-pronged approach we have has really made all the difference to where we can meet those needs and do that. We can reach those kids.
Yeah. It's interesting hearing you talk because it just made a connection in my mind. And before I was talking about when they diagnosed me falsely and I was tested and I felt that I had a healthy test, that For the Need is two-sided. The kids have a need, but also us as volunteers have a need. And I've always felt, and I've talked about, like, there are those that are in need and there's those that have to give. And even kids that are in need can give as well. There's always something to give. But like you talk about our longbows, and it like warms my heart. Like we'll have a conference call and you'll hear somebody sharing about how they're trying to get their families to come to the event, and you hear how excited they are and how good they feel about it, you know. And then it's really cool because Allie sends out a report, or Alicia does, or Julia. The team sends out a report about who showed up. Yeah. You know, and so you look and you're like, oh, did my family show up? And it just gives you such a strong, good feeling that you did something to give back. So it's a different need, but it is a need to fill us with purpose. And I love, dude, there's nothing better. And I think you've seen it before too. We'll have this breakout time at lunch and you'll see kids talking to people. And we know most of the people. I don't know all the people now. We have so many great volunteers, but I'll see, you know, Mike Spicer talking to a kid. And I was like, that is so good for both of them. I'm so happy IJ is talking to Mike. You know, I'm like, look at that, dude. Like, because Mike raised 3 great daughters, you know, and he's got capacity, and that's good for Mike. Like, I tell Mike, it's so cool, and he's like, no, dude, this is good. And I see Mike's heart fill up. Yeah, you know. Wow. So it's there's need on both sides. Like, we didn't, you know, when we started For the need was like, we think about needy kids that are in need, right? Yeah. But it's us too. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Where do you see For the Need? What's, like, you know, the next thing for the Need for you in your head? You know, what's on the horizon?
Well, we've done proof of concept. Like, you know, in business, you have an idea, you do some analysis, but some of it's theory, and so we had to test out the theory. That's the scariest part, because you could put tremendous amount of money, time, effort, and not know if it works. Now we've seen it work. And I always say you start stuff with like these paper plates, and you start the Arrow Star, and you start the Longbow team, and you start all stuff, and it's all just written on paper, and, you know, you hope that it's spinning. Once you start seeing it work, and we had plenty of things not work, you know, then you just stop doing that and you focus on the ones that are working. So you have such a great vision, and I'm seeing you improve the different things and adjust. You know, like I don't think we're doing the pre-meeting anymore on Zoom, or there's something you just canceled. It was like nobody's really tuning into that, so we're gonna videotape it and send it out. So just keep sharpening it, much like any franchise kind of thing would do. And when I say that, we don't make any money. We put money into this. This isn't about, like, when I say the word franchise, because I'm from the business background, and so, but I think about it on return on investment, which the kids are the investment, and the return is them doing well. Yeah. So I just see more refinement that you're doing and growing. We're about to do the thing directly at a shelter, testing different ways to keep doing what we're doing. But how about you? What do you?
We're excited to see For the Need become even more multi-city than it is right now. at the time of making this video in 2026, we have 2 chapters of our mentorship program, and we're launching a mini chapter at a women and children facility where the families can stay there for up to 2 years, sometimes even up to 2 years. And so we're launching a mini chapter there, and we're, God willing, going to be launching another mini chapter in June at another family shelter where they can stay there for about a year or so. And I see our model growing to being these full-on chapters where we do all our big, awesome, huge events, and then these mini chapters, and then hopefully those mini chapters, as those grow and those people are still going to the bigger chapter as well, the big chapter gets so big that we launch a third big chapter, and we have 3 big chapters, and then God willing, one day we have 4 or 5, continuing on until the needs are met, maybe. And I'm excited to see that happening. We've got such a great team. Our staff is minimal. We have 2 staff. Me, I'm staff, and 1 other person, and a part-time person. And we're just going to see the growth with our volunteers. Our 98% volunteer-run programs are just going to keep growing, and the needs are going to be met. The kids are going to be working and providing back, coming back, being volunteers. That's what I see. I see our vision of becoming even more multi-city than we are, and the children and teenagers we're working with giving back and going and working or being in trade schools and coming back and volunteering and making a new cycle. Instead of being a repeated generational cycle of dependence and poverty, they're going to become a new cycle of achieving their dreams, independence, and giving back to the next generation of kids that are facing the same things they faced. I'm really excited to see us breaking the generational cycles and starting new cycles.
Yeah. It's cool because, we can't take all the credit. We copied from Alcoholics Anonymous to Boy Scouts, and a number of other programs, but there wasn't really something for kids that are in the spot, like the hardest to reach, they're not in a foster program. Typically they're with their guardians in difficult situations. And that's a hard audience to build a program around. There have been so many other easier things, but that you have proved out the concept, and it's still hard, and we still, have stumbling blocks, and it breaks our hearts when, some of the families don't show up after all this effort and they don't show up. So there's still weakness that can be improved on, but we'll always have the hard, difficult things. But there literally is something that was created that wasn't in existence before that can become the tool that does all this encouragement. And I see it with Alan. Alan got a job. He's so grateful. And then he earned enough tickets to get his driver's training paid for. He's 18, but he's failed his driving test twice. So he really needs the driver's training. And he's got more than enough tickets that he's earned from the good things that he's done in the program.
Yeah.
And so today he's going to get coordinated to do the driver training thing. And he's so excited about it. And then Wednesday, you're going to be speaking in front of Simi Valley's little grant program, and Alan is going to speak, and he's so excited about it. And I go, Alan, what will you share about? And he's like, I'm going to share about this, this, and this. And he's like, but I'm a little nervous. I go, if you say what you just said, just don't even be nervous. Just tell your story. They're going to give us all the money. It's only like $2,500 or whatever, but it's,
it would be amazing if that would be awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. But that's the stuff that gives me encouragement, is that we have these success stories, and they're so excited about it that they're willing to share and help out. And that's how it has its own momentum now, because we have a lot of these young people that keep coming back and they're serving themselves. And so I see them being full people. They might not have the best job in the world. They might have still a pretty crappy situation, but I see them full, and their well-being taken care of. I laugh because I think about all these stories, and it just brings you joy. So that's
awesome.
what I hope to see more in the future. And even if God doesn't bless it to where it grows, like doing what we're doing, seeing that continue, we're not in control of the outcome. But
The man plans his way and the Lord establishes his steps.
yeah.
We cannot establish our own steps. We can only plan, and sometimes, it doesn't go according to plan, but we're going to be stewards of God's will, however that may be. So,
Yeah. And I think it's a key role, because you guys were asking about my childhood, and I think that's when you talk about root cause, it starts at a young age, and that's what we're trying to work with.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your story and how you were able to see that you had to take care for yourself, and how we can fill in the gap for kids who aren't able to do that for themselves and who don't even have, that bare foundation of the two parents who are very active in their lives. But yeah, so thank you for sharing your story and for giving us some inspiration to see where For the Need can go and how it got started. It's really a great story, and I'm excited to be part of it. And thank you, everyone, for listening along at home. We appreciate you, and we're excited to hear what you think. And we look forward to more podcasts in the future. So this has been Root Cause with Allie and Myan from For the Need Foundation, and we look forward to seeing you next time.